I really wanted to be out in the garden today, but it is 38 degrees and the rain is blowing sideways. So instead, I thought I would revisit an experiment I did last spring at about the same time. So last year, I was talking to a colleague who happened to mention that his mother, who had been a successful market gardener for over 40 years, attributed her success, at least in part, to planting by the moon. This was not the first time that I had heard about this concept, but I'd never really given it a lot of thought. Now, it does sound kind of new age or woo-woo, but planting with the moon has actually been around for thousands of years. Peoples like the ancient Celts, the Maori tribe of New Zealand, and even Pliny the Elder in Rome gave advice about planting by the moon's signs. Now, the basic concept is that there are optimal and suboptimal times to plant and do other gardening related chores based on what phase the moon is in. Now, perhaps one of the best known proponents of doing things by the moon is the Llewellyn's Guide. So when I started looking into this topic, I went out and got a copy of the Llewellyn's Moon Sign book. Now, this book tells you how to do everything in your life by the moon, but I was really just interested in the section on gardening. So according to this book, timing is everything. If you know how to use the moon, you'll not only be in sync with nature, but you can sit back and watch your garden grow beyond your wildest dreams. Lunar gardening is simple, and the results are immediate. It doesn't matter whether you're a beginner gardener with a single pot or an old hand with years of master gardening experience. Your garden will grow bigger and better if you follow the cycles of the moon and match the right time up with the right gardening activity. Those are some pretty big and tantalizing claims. I could just sit back and watch my garden fulfill its full potential with barely raising a finger if only I follow the moon cycles. Sounds too good to be true, but I wanted to find out for myself. Now, there are several different methods of moon sign planting, but I decided to go with the system that's laid out in Llewellyn's book. Now, this is a fairly complex system and takes into account both the phase of the moon, so whether it's waxing or waning, and also which sign the moon is in at any given time. The waxing moon is considered the phase of growth in the garden. So starting with the new moon, for 2 weeks while the moon increases in size and light until you reach the full moon. This is considered the best time to plant above ground crops and prune for increased growth. The waning phase of the moon, or the 2 weeks from the full moon to the new moon, is when the moon is decreasing in size and light. And this is considered the maintenance phase of the garden and is also considered the best time to plant below ground or root crops, as well as tackling chores like weeding and pest control. So within each waning and waxing phase of the moon, you also have to take into consideration the sign that the moon is in, or where the moon is in the zodiac. So this is where it gets a little woo-woo. As the moon makes its 28-day path around the earth, it passes through certain constellations, which are signs of the zodiac. It will spend 2 to 3 days in each of these zodiac signs. Now, you may have heard like New Age types say things like, the moon is in Capricorn and I'm feeling really impulsive and I shouldn't make any big decisions right now, or something like that. I don't know. That's probably all wrong. I know nothing about astrology, but it's that concept of where the moon falls that we're paying attention to. And as it pertains to gardening, there are some zodiac signs that are better for growth and some that are not. The growth signs are Taurus, Libra, Cancer, Scorpio, Capricorn, and Pisces. The no-grow or maintenance signs are Aries, Gemini, Leo, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. Now, Llewellyn's book gives you tips on how to put all of the signs and the moon phases together and chart them all out on your own calendar. So I followed this and laid out all of my pertinent planting times and gardening chores for my main gardening months. Now, quick tip, if you want to try this but don't want to go through all the work outlined in this book, The Farmer's Almanac website actually makes this really easy for you. You can go to their site on any given day. It will tell you which gardening chores to undertake on that day. So it's a much quicker and easier process. So to embark on my experiment, I decided to take 2 spring crops and plant half of each on an optimal day and half of each on a suboptimal or barren day. So this was in 2020. So the lettuce was planted on April 1st, which was an optimal day for lettuce, as the moon was waxing and it was in Cancer. The next batch was planted the following day, April 2nd, which was a barren day because the moon was in Leo, a no-grow sign. The peas were done in the same way. The first batch was planted on April 5th, which was a barren day in 2020 because the moon was in Virgo. The following day, April 6th, was an optimal day because the moon was waxing and in Libra. So let's take a look at my results. So here are my 2 varieties of lettuce that were planted on April 1st, a so-called optimal day. And here are the same 2 varieties of lettuce planted the next day, April 2nd, which was a so-called barren day. Can you see any difference between the 2? Because I cannot. Same situation here. This is the same pea. This group was planted on April 6th, which was a so-called optimal day. This group was planted on April 5th, a so-called barren day. I can't see any difference between these either. So unfortunately, my results were less than compelling. I really couldn't see any difference in any of the growth along the way. Germination rates were similar, growth rates were similar, yields were very similar. I wasn't really getting any benefit out of planting on an optimal moon day versus a barren moon day. Now, I did have to dig a little more to see if there were some actual valid scientific reasons that this moon planting might work. And I ran across a few explanations. A lot of this had to do with theories about gravitational pull. So the same gravitational pull that the moon exudes on the tides also works on the water tables under the earth. And it may be possible that it pulls that water up just enough to help the young seedlings out. Another idea is that geotropism, or the effect that gravity has on plants, may be stronger during times of a full moon. Interestingly, there have been some scientific experiments done on this concept. Dr. Frank Brown of Northwestern University performed research over a 10-year period of time and found that plants absorbed more water at the time of the full moon. Several studies, including some done by Isabella Guarini at the University of Perugia in Italy, have concluded that plant sap flows more as the moon becomes full and lessens as the moon wanes. Scientific observation as early as the 1970s showed that all plants grow differently during different phases of the moon, but the exact why is still unanswered. So if nothing else, there's definitely some interesting things to consider. But perhaps the most compelling argument I've heard so far for planting by the moon is from my own sister. She said she's unsure if it actually works, but having a devoted system of what tasks to tackle when in the garden has helped her immensely. I would just plant and plant and plant and avoid weeding at all costs if left to my own devices. But knowing there are certain days that are optimal for certain tasks helps me allocate my time more efficiently. I thought that was a really good way to look at it. And as I mentioned earlier, if moon planting is something that you swear by, I would love to hear about your experiences. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.